True self-care is learning about who you are and what makes you tick and completely understanding you. A lot of people don't want to do the work because it is work to do that. Your past actually doesn't exist anymore and the future doesn't exist. These are states that don't exist. They exist in here. We gravitate always towards negative, and that's a survival mechanism for us. If you're trying to accomplish something like getting fit, working out every day, if I don't care about myself, then I'm not going to do it.
Welcome to Done Pretending, the podcast where healing meets authentic living. I am your host, Susan Houston, storyteller, mentor, and believer in the power of truth to set us free. This is your sanctuary for the soul, a safe space where we peel back the layers of judgment and fear to uncover the beauty of living real. Each week, you'll hear stories of courage, resilience, and transformation that remind you it's never too late to become who you were created to be. Hi, friends. Let me welcome you in. I am excited to share with you Jan Raeder. I met her at a networking event recently and just connected with her. I love her story. I love what she does. She calls herself the self-care Sensei. And we're going to learn more about that really soon. But she's been at this kind of work for over 30 years. And she's got a book called Strive for More. So, Jan, welcome to Dumb Pretending.
Hello. How is everybody today?
So, the self care sensei, tell us where that comes from. Tell us your history that you've got.
Well, we'd be here all day if we went into my whole history, but we'll just go into that brief part of it. Well, not a brief part, but I've been involved in Okinawan Japanese karate, totally different than Taekwondo. I have to say that because some people think Taekwondo is karate. It's not. But anyway, I've been involved in that for over 3 decades and I'm retired now. But I went back to college in 2013, got a bachelor's and a master's within 4 years. Started with only 19 credits. And that was from all the discipline that I learned in the martial arts. And I started really digging deep into the research about well being. So, as far as, and I am going to get to the self care sensei part, and I developed some programs for higher education. I taught a little bit in higher education for a short amount of time. And then during the pandemic, I decided to write my book. And I talked to a lot of different people, and they're like, oh, well, you should bring your martial arts into what you're doing. So I thought to myself, I was like, okay, well, I guess I could call myself self care. And then because I'm in the self care business. And I was like, well, I'll call myself the self care sensei. And so I researched that, and no one else except one person that I found on Instagram with that handle. And it was a woman with nails like long, super long nails. And I thought, well, no disrespect, but she's not in the martial arts with nails like this. So I think I'm safe with using that. So
They
that's
could
what I,
be weapons.
it's true. But that's when I really started using that handle because self care for me is not, I don't think these things are bad to do, is, having wine with your girlfriends on a Friday night or taking a bath, getting a manicure and a pedicure with your friends, those are all wonderful things, but they're not true self care. True self care is learning about who you are and what makes you tick and completely understanding you, or to the best of our knowledge. I don't think we completely understand ourselves anyway, but we do the best we can. So then we show up better when we're in all the places that we have to be. So that's why I define self-care that way, not the way that, no disrespect to People Magazine or,
Yeah.
Mademoiselle or any of those articles you read, because those things are good, but they're not true self-care.
Well, I think sometimes those things are good. We have to allow ourselves to do some things that make us feel elevated and feel good. But I think you're right. Until you know who you really are, then you don't really know what works or what feeds your soul.
Right.
Yeah.
100%. You're speaking my language because he's
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely right. And the manicure, the pedicure, the massage, all of those things, those are just temporary things. And again, like I said, not that they're bad things. They are. They're great. People do feel good doing them, but they're fleeting. And so you want something that you can build on and understand who you are and build resilience and grit and self knowledge, self awareness. These are all things that are so important that I think we know a lot of people don't want to do the work because it is work to do that.
Well, it's hard. It's hard to face it because you have to dig into the your past. You have to dig into feelings that you have buried forever.
Yeah, 100%. And I love that you just brought up past because this is one thing that in my journey through positive psychology research and so on, and this is my own supposition from all of that, is your past, because nobody's, it's not quoted somewhere by Martin Seligman, this, but your past, having regrets and things and having to do with things having to do with your past leads people more into the depression area. Whereas your future and not knowing and being concerned about, that's more anxiety building.
Mm.
So so when people regret things from their past, they tend to go if someone says I'm depressed, it's more related to what happened in their past. And if they say, "Oh, my anxious, I'm not sure, I don't know what's going to happen," that kind of thing, it's more about your future. So the thing that because I have a foot in the Eastern camp and a foot in the Western camp, what I've understood about all the because I also used to teach meditation and yoga too, is that your past actually doesn't exist anymore and the future doesn't exist. These are states that don't exist. They exist in here, in your head. As we were talking about before we started the recording, that neuroscience tells us that our brains don't always remember things the way we're supposed to remember them. So
Yeah.
we're kind of faulty. And if you think about it, all those little bits of data that we take in every day, how could you possibly remember everything so specifically? So we have a filing system in our brains that doesn't always work as well as we would like. So something in your past that you're, regretting or you're depressed about or you're sad about or something, you may not even remember it the right way. You may have built a story based on it and then you carry it forward through your whole life. So
Yep.
for me, I don't really dwell on my past and I try not to think too much about the future either. I mean, obviously, you have to a certain degree, because you're going to expect keep living. I'm going to keep living. So you try to really balance those things and learning more, like you said, about your past, learning about that stuff helps you to face the future in a better way. Because that's really how we face the future. It's based on our past.
It is, but I love what you said. The past is not here, and neither is the future, and I think we get so lost in both of those areas instead of just looking at where we are right now.
Right. 100%. Yeah, 100%. Because I mean, that's one of the things that a lot of what I've been doing lately with the work that I do is just trying to get people to feel grateful for just
Mm,
little things. I'm not talking about gratitude lists because some of the science has shown that, and I don't have anything against gratitude lists, but some people find them tedious. And, how many times can you write down, oh, I have a roof over my head, which
yeah.
having a roof over your head is a fantastic thing and you should be grateful for it. But people take things for granted after a while. Like I said, how many times can you write, I have a roof over my head, I have clothes on my back, I have, blah, blah, blah.
How do you what would you recommend to develop our gratitude?
Well, there's a fantastic exercise that Martin Seligman, he's the father of positive psychology, and he was from Penn State. I believe I don't think he's Emirates yet. I don't think he's retired yet. But he and his students developed this exercise called What Went Well. And the most important part of that exercise is the why part. He should have called it What Went
Mm,
Well and Why, because our brains are negative. We gravitate always towards negative, and that's a survival mechanism for us. Goes back to the days when we had apex predators chasing us. And most people now don't have that. I notice I said most people because there are people that still have apex predators that could be chasing them. So,
yeah.
but we don't have that. So we develop this part of our brain for negative, we wind up grabbing onto the negative. And then unfortunately it spills over into everything else. So we have to train ourselves to be positive. So that
Mm.
why piece is where the training happens, and it's a practice. It's not a one and done. It's not, I'm going to work out until I can fit into the dress I want to wear for the reunion or the wedding, or
Mhm.
stop. It's a practice that you do every single day. So you think about the smaller things like this conversation that we're having right now, our
Yep.
meet that we're having right now. Why am I grateful for that? Well, because we have a lot, we've discovered we have some things in common, and that maybe we can work together on other things to help other people, which is a main thing to have in common, is to helping other people. But
Yeah.
the little things are what's important. And then what happens is we start looking for those things. We start, instead
Mhm.
of, the project at work, we stunk at this, so it went down the tubes and we might as well throw the whole thing out, throw the baby out with the bathwater. Well, no, let's start looking, okay, that might have gone wrong, but what went well during that project? What was okay? How can we build on that? So that's one of the things that I love. And I do it every Wednesday on social media. I have What Went Well Wednesday. And I try to just get people involved in thinking about some small things that happen to them. And, I recommend you doing it every day, but I figure the middle of the week, hump day, it's a good day to, kind of go, okay, what went well for me this week? What went well so far? Because really and truly, when you look at that, start looking at that every day, you start then looking for it in your
I
life.
was just gonna say that. I have a mentor, Jeffrey Bornman, who has gotten me started on this, and that is his whole point too. He goes, "If you," and he is the same way, yes, we're thankful for the food that we have, the people around
Yes.
us, all of that. But if you start looking for the gratitude in just your everyday driving to the cleaners or whatever. I was driving home from getting gas the other night and I happened to see the rocket launch,
Mm.
SpaceX rocket launch.
Oh, cool. How cool.
So cool, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And it's those things that really change the way you look at the world, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. Oh, I
At least
agree.
in my world, they do.
Yeah, oh, no, I agree wholeheartedly, and I started noticing this many, many years ago. I'll tell this quick story. During the day when we didn't have karate classes, I did ran a lot of errands. Like, you had to go get toilet paper for the dojo or whatever. I had to go do that. And I was sitting in a parking lot, and it had rained earlier in the day, and there was these puddles in the parking lot, and I saw these little birds taking a bath. I think it was a Target parking lot, and I'm watching them take a bath, and I just thought, "How beautiful is this that they're in these little puddles?" And then I noticed the people that didn't even see these little birds taking a bath, and I thought, "You're missing out on this." All you needed to do is just for a minute, look at them and just go, "That's incredible. That's beautiful." It's, because we are think we're so important. We think everything that's happening to us is astronomical, and it's, monumental and so on. And we can only see things through our own eyes. I get that. I
Mhm.
understand.
Mhm.
But in that moment, just taking that moment to notice that little thing,
Yeah.
it's so powerful and so incredible. So that's why I said, if you are noticing these little things during the day, I love that you said about seeing the rocket launch.
Yeah.
My husband and I had to go to, run some errands. And, we live in a rural area in the Adirondack Mountains in New York State. And we're driving down the road, and up above was a bald eagle flying.
Wow.
And I mean, we see them probably more often than somebody that lives in a, heavily populated area. But I just love looking at that. You just are there and you're like, so incredible. It just removes yourself from whatever is you think is happening in your life that you think stinks. It's like,
It does.
what I mean? It's a moment where you go, okay, I can reset. Maybe this
Yeah.
isn't as big as I thought it was? So that's why I like it.
I love that. Gosh, I might have to do that with I'm going to be doing a reset for people here coming up, and I might have to look into that, talk to you more about that. I have a question for you. You said that you taught martial arts for over 30 years and then you retired. What made you make that shift? Was there a reason that you decided to get out of it and do something different?
Actually, what happened, my husband, who developed the style that I wound up teaching and studying and running, I ran the business part. He didn't like that part, so I did that. But
Yeah.
he's been teaching martial arts for over 50 years. So he was just I'm coming to the end. You know, you have those moments where you look at yourself in the mirror on the karate floor and you're trying to teach a 9-year-old and you look at yourself and you go, "Oh god, who the heck is that?" You know? So and you think, these guys aren't connecting with this old person up here, So
Yeah.
that it was kind of heading in that direction. And then we had some students that decided to buy the school from us.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, and so that was a journey. That's a different show altogether. But they wound up, because that's a stressful thing to
Yeah.
wind up going through that. Part of the package of I wasn't gonna be staying on to keep managing the business because they were gonna take over.
Yeah.
So I retired and, the big sad thing for me is, I had really gotten a lot of close people felt like family.
Mhm.
So that was one real sad thing for me because I lost that part of it. But at the same time, I was like, it's run its course. And the other thing too is because I had this happen to me all the time once I got onto LinkedIn and talked to a lot of people, and so they were like, "Oh, do you coach?" I'm like, "No, no, I don't coach." It's like I don't. I did that. I coached people for a really long time. That's why I wrote a book because I'm the paperback coach. If you want me to coach you, buy my book and read my book, and that's where I'm coaching you. So because I just don't. I know that some people kind of raise an eyebrow or whatever. But I did a tremendous amount of research, not only just this scientific research, but my own life, all my experiences and things. So what I share in my book is it's based in science. It's backed up by science. It's backed up by personal experiences. And if you do the things that I suggest in my book, which are all free, you don't have to buy anything beyond buying the book, but all
And the book is called Strive for More, right?
Strive for more. Yep. And that's an acronym. The more is an acronym. But anyway, you don't have to, but if you do those things, they work. So, so like, this is me. I'm like, okay, do the stuff that's in my book and you will feel a difference. And I can say that 100%. You will feel a difference if you do those things.
If this episode hit something for you, don't keep it to yourself. Follow me and follow the show so you don't miss what's next. Leave a comment because I actually do read them, and share this with someone who needs to hear it, even if they don't know it yet.
This what went well exercise. If you do that exercise every day, you will feel a difference. Martin Seligman is a professed pessimist, and he does that exercise. And
Hmm.
he says, I feel different when I do that exercise. They also tested it on depressed patients, and depressed patients felt better in the 6 months that they did that exercise. So I love it too because I love it for it's so many places you can use it. If you are a manager and you manage people after a meeting or at the end of a meeting, ask everybody what went well. Not everybody's going to join in, but they can feel heard, they can feel seen, and you can end on a positive note. If you have kids around a meal or their bedtime, ask them what went well today and why. Because think about if you are a parent, you've had a kid come home and complain that, oh, the teacher didn't call on me or this, whatever happened. Well, I got to ask them to shift to what went well today because then they start looking for it. We don't teach people to start looking for these things. The other thing from the parent perspective is if you start this early with your kids, it's a way to stay connected with your kids. So as they get into their teen years, they're not just telling you what they think you want to hear because you've built this connection with them already. So it's a way to keep that dialogue open so that if something does go bad, they're more open to talk about it because you've talked about what went well and then they learn how to look for the good. So it's the best exercise out of all the exercises in the book. It's the best exercise to do.
I love that, Jan. And we're going to put the links to your book and your website and all of that in our show notes, everybody. So, gosh, tell me more about this.
Tell me
Just like
more.
absorbing this, like, oh, my brain is just like,
I mean, I have to say, just to tell about my story a little bit, is I've always been a glass half full person. I've always been the
mhm,
cloud has a silver lining. But for about 10 years, as I was going through perimenopause and menopause, I did not recognize myself. I did not
mhm,
know who I was because I became depressed. I was anxious, had all these, and most of it was, the majority of it was hormonal, but I really didn't have good doctors. I had trouble finding
yeah.
good partners. I don't like to call them your doctor. I like to call them my partner.
Well,
And
they should be. And
yeah,
unfortunately, the way the medical system is right now, someone that I thought was my partner, I can't even spend more than 10 minutes with her now.
and that's tough. That's tough. That's super tough. I know exactly what
Yeah.
you're talking about because all these things were happening to me. I was probably about 40, 43 at the time. And I mean, when I hit 45, it was like I ran head first into a brick wall and everything just fell apart. And, I was trying so desperately to find somebody, and I actually got thrown out of a practice once because
Oh,
yeah, it's really fun to get a certified letter saying, "We no longer want you as a patient." And then having to have that in your record to find a new doctor is never good because I was an advocate for myself.
mhm.
I have to admit I did some things, I said the wrong things, I'm sure, but I was so desperate to fix what I knew was wrong because I knew something
Mhm.
was wrong and they kept saying no. And I'm like, I know my body, I know myself. So once you find people that you can work with, then it's better. So I had about a 10-year period where I was going through all these struggles. And that's kind of, when I went back to college, it was during this time. And they say all the time, and some people may have heard this before, all research is me search. And if you think about it, people that are out there doing scientific research, they're questions for themselves. So
Yeah.
they want to find stuff out. So they ask the question and then they do the research. And then, of course, you have more questions that come up. But anyway, so I did a lot of soul searching, a lot of, because I tried to take those happy pills, like I call them. I couldn't take those. I had one that I landed on that I felt better. And like 9 days into it, I broke out in a rash. So, and that was
Mhm.
like actually, that was the second to last one I took. My husband even said to me, "What are you going to do now?" So, it was a lot of soul searching during this. But I wasn't giving up. I mean, that discipline, that, tenacity, that grit that I gained during the martial arts really helped me in that struggle to get through that. And so that's, really another thing that motivated me to write my book and to share that
Mhm.
there is a way. Because everything was so abstract and so, people were saying this and they were saying that. And I was getting all these different, I tried to distill down well being and wellness for people in a way that makes it easier to understand.
It's fascinating. You've said it twice and about grit,
Yeah.
discipline and grit.
Yeah.
And I have tried to be disciplined in a lot of things. I think I have a lot of grit
Yeah.
just naturally because, you know, when you go through shit, you develop grit, right?
Yeah.
But the discipline sometimes is hard for me.
Yeah.
What would you tell someone like me about that?
Discipline and motivation are tied together. And
Mhm.
when I always say to people when is to start small. Start with really small things. And it's kind of tied to goal setting, but not exactly because I like goals, but I don't like goals, and I'll explain that in a minute. And I think I kind of alluded to it earlier when I mentioned the dress that you fit into for the event is to start small and to also, which one of the things I don't include in my book which is basically achievement, appreciating your achievements and celebrating your achievements is even if you do something small, then you celebrate that. And then
Mhm.
but then you have to keep doing it. You can't think of something as having an end. So when you
Mhm.
are starting your journey on being more disciplined with something. I don't know, pick it. I
Working out every day or working out.
okay, working out every day. So that's perfect because so many people don't have the quote discipline
Yeah.
for that because they don't
Yeah.
see the you don't see the results as
Mhm.
quickly as people would like to see. And we are in such a society now that, what, 3 seconds is people's attention span. I can get I have these six-pack abs I got in 8 minutes. Yeah, maybe
Right.
8 minutes 3 to 5 times a week, but
For months, right? Yeah.
so you have to, and this kind of goes with meditation philosophy too. You have to drop your expectations. Like
Mhm.
people tell me all the time, "Oh, I can't meditate, I can't sit there." Well, you got to drop your expectations. You have to lower what you think is going to happen. There isn't going to be some miracle. Same thing with working out. You're not going to have at the end of one workout, you're not going to be fit if you aren't fit now. And building fitness, it's a project. And the other thing that the 2 things that I would say is, 1, why are you doing it? You have to have the most important tangible why. It's gotta be
Mhm.
something that you can really sink your teeth in, you can grip onto, because when you don't wanna do it, you need that to keep
Yes.
doing it. The other thing is yourself, loving yourself, because if you're trying to accomplish something like getting fit, working out every day, if I don't care about myself, then I'm not gonna do it. And some people go, "Well, I care about myself." I'm like, "Well, no, you don't." Because everybody knows that moving your body and eating better and drinking enough water and appreciating life is important. I'm not saying anything that people don't know. Your
Right.
listeners are going like this. "Oh, wow, I didn't know that."
It's like, no, we know. Yeah.
You know. So what you have to say is you have to be real with yourself. You have to go, okay, why am I not doing this? Why do I not want to do this? And you have to unpack that. And you have to
Mm.
get out of your own way. And then you have to go, okay, it doesn't have an end date, which some people are like, well, what do you mean? That I don't have a goal to reach. Well, you could set a goal for yourself if you want, but it can't end because until you die. That's the way it's something you do. It's who you are, not something you do.
I think that's the key. It doesn't end and it becomes who you are.
Right, exactly, but you
Yeah.
have to start small, and because if you say, "I wanna run a marathon," okay, that's wonderful, that's a great goal, 26 miles. People run hundreds and hundreds of miles before they run the marathon.
Mhm.
The Olympians that we're seeing right now on television, nobody sees the behind the scenes stuff for these people. Nobody sees the, like Michael Phelps, for example, said at one point, nobody sees the fact that I got into the pool every day at 5 o'clock in the morning from the time I was like 10 or whatever it is.
Yep.
I don't know how
Mhm.
many, but you know my point. So
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
don't see that stuff. And that's where the grit is built. That's where you really become truly gritty because you say, okay, this is what I've decided. This is what I'm going to do. This is who I'm going to become. And I'm going to do it. Even when I don't want to do it, I'm going to do it. And then
Yep.
the key to that is those days when you've said, oh my God, I don't want to do this. We've all done it. I don't care. Talk to any of those Olympic athletes. They have had days that they didn't want to do it, but they did. So that day that you didn't want to do it, at the end of that day, at the end of what you're doing, you say the what went well part. You go, well, what went well today? I didn't want to do it, but I did it. And guess what? I felt better. And I always tell people because you feel better after you work out. I don't care what you are,
Always.
you feel better after you
Always.
work out. Sit
Mhm.
there in it for a moment and be connected to that feeling and
Mhm.
remember that feeling. So, but that's how you have to do it is that it's and I'm not telling you anything you haven't heard before. I'm just saying it in a different way. I hope that
Yeah.
makes people realize that anyone can do it. Anyone can be disciplined if you believe in it enough.
And you connect to it. I think the connecting, the feeling that you get from it, for me, that's the key part.
Yeah.
And you're right. I always do feel better, but I don't take the time to acknowledge that.
Yeah, you have to. You
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah, because
Mm.
of that right there, the next time you feel like, "I don't wanna do it," you remind yourself, "Okay, yeah, but I didn't do that I didn't wanna do it the last time, and I felt so good at the end."
Mhm. Mhm.
That just do it. And, listen, I still, I work out 3 to 5 times a week now. I lift heavy weights and so on. And there are days when I don't want to do it and I'll do a shorter workout that day. But I still do it though. Because and at the end of it,
Yeah.
like, or even during, because my husband and I work out together. So we're lucky we have each other for doing that. But, there's days even when he doesn't want to do it. And I'll say, yeah, but we're here. We're down here. And he does the same thing to me. He'll go, I know you don't want to try to lift this, but try one more rep. Try to do one more rep. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you
It
could be
reminds me of a
coach.
story from a friend of mine. He was going through a really depressive state, and a buddy of his told him, "You need to start working out." And so he would be, "I really don't feel like doing this, but today it's gonna be enough if I just drive to the gym." And he'd
Yep.
sit there in front of the door and be like, "Okay, I'm gonna go in for, like, 5 minutes."
Yep.
And inevitably, once you start, you
Yep.
finish it. You finish
Yep.
whatever that day was going to look like, or you do part of it. And then the momentum builds because you do have that feeling of feeling better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100
Yeah.
100%. I mean, and that's the savoring part, which is what I said about, celebrating what you did, make a solid memory of it, savor it. Like the savoring part, that's actually Sonia Lubomirsky, who is, heavyweight in positive psychology. That's one of the things that she recommends to people, savoring stuff. I do have an
Mm.
exercise in my book about savoring. I don't call it savoring, but I actually have people I really recommend this too. This is another one for the people that are listening. If you put on just on your phone, I have it on my phone. I have different album or yeah, they call them albums, right?
Uh-huh.
And I have the positive emotions and I have images that make me think of those. So like, love, that's the biggest positive emotion. And then it's not about romantic love. It's just love in general. And I have images that make me think of love. So serenity, that you have images and you engage in those. You engage with those on your phone when you need a little boost. And that actually works really good for people who are going into a difficult conversation with someone else or a difficult job interview that they really want the job. Engage with positive things before you go into those because then you go in the best vein possible.
What a great thing instead of, just doom scrolling like we all do, do something that's going to put you in the right mindset
Right.
for that.
100%. Yeah.
I
Save
love
and
that, Jan.
savor that. Yeah. So like when we're on our phones all the time, we're taking pictures of everything all the time now. I mean, what is this? This is like the most photographed generation or something.
Oh, wow.
Whatever.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have pictures on your phone all the time. Well, put them into different, look up in my book, I list all of the 10 positive emotions and you could just look them up because Barbara Fredrickson developed that list and she is the queen of positive emotions. And any one of those, pick a bunch of pictures and put it on your phone. Now, some people actually make like a scrapbook or a box that they have items in too, because you can do that too. You engage with them, but that's one of the other exercises that I recommend in the book because it helps you savor. It helps you remember those things that happened. And so when you're sad about something, engage with one of those things on your phone. And it really does boost your mood and makes you think, maybe I'm playing a little bit too much of a pity party for myself right now. You know,
We all have those.
yeah, and you're like, "Okay, have the pity party for a few minutes, but then pull yourself up by your bootstraps and be gritty and know that
Yep.
I can get through this and transcend those bad things that happen to you." And that's one great way to do it, is that way.
Love it. Jan, you are so amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. And Jan Reeder, we will have her link to her book and her website in our show notes. You have just dropped some incredible knowledge, my friend.
Oh, thank you. again, like I said, I don't want to tell people I didn't, this isn't stuff you haven't heard before. You've heard it before. You just have to actually do it. That's
You
what I
do. And, I think it's so important for us to be reminded of it as
Yeah.
well,
Yes.
because we get so lost in our day to day lives. We're all busy, we all have a million things going on. So thank you. And for friends, I want to remind you hit the follow button and share this with people who need this. This is an incredible episode for all of your friends. So send this to them and sign up for my weekly wisdom. I will be sending out, not spamming you, just sending out some weekly wisdoms like Jan just shared with us. And you can find that on my website, thesusanhouston.com. But I look forward to connecting with you all again next week. Jan, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on Done Pretending, where healing meets authentic living. If today's conversation moved you, share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't yet, be sure to follow the show and leave a review. Your words help this message reach more hearts around the world. Remember, you are seen, you are loved, and your story has the power to set others free.